I'd like to talk today about energy storage. And energy storage is one of those things that's important to electric vehicles and to powering homes and things of the future. So the reality is that batteries are still the most efficient way to store energy. There really isn't a better way yet. Now, the battery technology has come a long way, and I want to talk about that in just a minute. But first, let's talk about the fact that you can take energy and you can get it into a battery in a lot of different ways. And it comes from a lot of different sources, whether it's coming from some coal fire or whether it's coming from nuclear or solar or wind energy. Any of those things allow you to capture energy and store it in a battery pretty simply. And because you can cover long distances with lines that allow you to transmit energy from one place to another, it's very efficient to get energy to different places. That's, say, unlike gasoline or oil for that matter, where you have to actually put it in trucks and tankers and other delivery vehicles and get it from point A to point B because you can't transmit it somewhere. Sure, there are pipelines and things that can get it through large areas, but to get it into a small area is basically impossible to do that with. So you have to actually truck it in to a gas station, let's say, where then you can get it. So it's an inefficient way of transmitting energy from one source to another and then putting it in your car so you can use it for energy. And I would argue that hydrogen, for the most part, is the same kind of a problem. You have to get hydrogen from some factory somewhere to a place where then you can get it as a consumer. So hydrogen is not the most efficient way to store energy at this point, at least, because there's no way to actually store it and hold on to it. So that's the kind of the gap in the whole thing right now. Now, I'm going to get to a story about hydrogen a little bit more here because there's a little more about hydrogen that I'd like to talk about.
So I'd like to break this down into 4 parts. First, I'm going to talk about batteries, then I'll talk about charging, I'll talk about energy storage, where there's some broader things happening, and then I'll talk a little bit about hydrogen fuel. So I'm going to start by talking about batteries, because I think that's kind of the thing that's most important here. Now, batteries are a really interesting topic. There's a lot of research going into batteries and a lot of things that are happening there. The tabs that you see on this battery are really kind of interesting because the tabs are what provides the electrical connectivity to be able to go through it. But what we're seeing is tabless batteries and solid-state batteries coming into play. And these are completely different in the way that they work. The solid-state batteries don't use the lithium ion the same way. Now they use a different material to make the energy flow back and forth between the anode and the cathode. And you can see it here, sort of that solid state. It has pores in it that allow the electrons to flow through. But it's really pretty cool that all this technology is evolving and people are coming up with ideas. So here's a company that's come up with a flat design that's pretty clever. And they talk about it on their website about how this material comes together with a solid electrical material that enables safe and reliable cell performance with high voltage and high capacity electrodes. So it's a big change in the philosophy. Then, of course, you see the Panasonic batteries that have evolved for Tesla, and the 4680 is the largest battery that they make right now, and it's the one that's going to be going into future cars. And that structural battery pack will be using those 4680 batteries as part of the battery pack to get more power. So Panasonic and Tesla have partnered up to make bigger and more efficient batteries as well. It's really pretty cool. Now, the 4680 refers to the size of the battery. It's how many millimeters around it is, how many millimeters tall it is, but it has an energy density that allows it to store a certain amount of energy in it. And these new batteries are remarkably efficient. You get 5 times the amount of energy out of it, which is really pretty amazing. It's just how that works is really cool. So of the old cells, you can take 5 of those away and replace it with 1 of these and get more kilowatt hours out of your battery and have more power. So these batteries are really efficient and use that property better. So this is really kind of an important step for Tesla and Panasonic to make in the battery industry. It's always that question about how do you gain the efficiency and how do you make sure that your batteries are going to continue to perform at a level that you want them to do. And by continuing to create new battery types and evolving the thought on it, you can see that this one is actually kind of flat across the top, so it doesn't have the tab, so it's actually more efficient that way as well. So it's really pretty cool. They've really thought this through and come up with something that's a much better and much more efficient battery. Moving on, there are other companies that are coming up with things that are more flexible type batteries. If you look at this, it does have the tabs, but it's a completely flexible battery that you could put in other parts of the car. It doesn't have to be under the car necessarily. And you're getting some sort of energy efficiency out of these particular flexible batteries. And that allows you a lot more flexibility in how you put the battery in the car, where you use it, and how you draw energy from it. You could certainly put a lot more of these batteries in a small amount of space, which is why this is really kind of important. So it's these things where everybody's kind of thinking through how these batteries might actually be more effective in terms of actually getting the cars more efficiency and using the batteries better. And you notice here too, there's not a lot of liquid in between here. This doesn't use the lithium ion the same way. So it's a completely different battery design. Moving on, let's talk about charging. Now, as you know, there are a couple of different ways to charge. So you have level 1 charging, which would be like your home charging 120 volts. You have your level 2 charging, which is more like your 240 volts at home charging. And then you have your level 3, which are your superchargers and beyond. So your superchargers, you have them spread across the United States. Ford is also putting in a charging network that will be very similar to it, and they're part of the way along. There are other companies that are coming together and putting in these charging networks that will charge well above 240 volts, and you're starting to get there. There was another story that came out that 53 energy companies are coming up with their own network that will also be able to charge across the country. Pretty impressive when you stop to think about it. Now, of course, home charging at level 2 is pretty efficient if you're just going to be parking your car at home. That's very easy. A lot of companies these days make a perk of being able to charge at work, where you can actually just plug your car in while you're there. And this is a nice perk to charge your car while you're actually up at your desk doing work. So more companies are offering it. Now, on the other hand, apartment buildings, there's still a gap, but more apartments are offering charging. So you have the methods of charging, but you're still limited by the heat that's created through charging. So you can go up to a certain amperage, but then there's a cutoff where the heat becomes too much and you have a lot of loss due to heat. So the idea by Purdue University here, among others, is to come up with a way to cool the cabling that goes in, so that way, when you're doing your charging, you don't have that limitation. You're moving that upper cap because the heat isn't produced, and you can actually increase the amperage and put more kilowatt hours in your car more quickly. This is really, really cool. And it's really amazing what technology can bring you. They're thinking through, how do we solve for the problem of upper limit of charging? And this is kind of a solution they've come up with. It's actually going to revolutionize the industry, because now you could actually theoretically charge much more efficiently and much faster. And now let's move on and talk about storage methods and some of the changes to the way storage is working. Here's some interesting information from Next Energy and some of the things that they've been working on in terms of changing the paradigm about how energy storage.
This is our Aries pack. It's 108 cells of lithium iron phosphate chemistry in series, about 79 kilowatt hours. What makes this really unique, Sandy, is that instead of using a modular approach that's traditional in lithium-ion battery products, we've gone directly, taking the cells and installing them directly into the pack to make a structural element out of the cells. And by doing that, we've achieved about 76% volumetric cell-to-pack energy efficiency. That's world-class. What we do is we literally stack these cells in here, and we do all of the cell compression, retention, and location directly into the pack.
And then you have a case study from Nissan where they're talking about how they want to change the paradigm as well. They were one of the first companies to create a battery and an electric car with the Leaf. And now they want to change the paradigm and make it more efficient too. So they've got some interesting ideas on what they're doing. This is really, really cool. The industry is moving so quickly at this point, and there are so many things happening. You have to stop and wonder what's going to happen next, because even in the time that it took me to record this video, things came up that were so different from one week to the next. It's really pretty amazing how quickly technology is evolving. And then we have this rather interesting piece of information from Dalhousie University that's up in Canada. And they're doing some really interesting work in terms of energy storage as well.
I'm excited and pleased to welcome Chongyin Yang and Michael Metzger as new assistant professors and chair holders here at Dalhousie University. And they're going to join our partnership with Tesla, which is going to be renewed until 2026. They bring us new ideas, new expertise, new methods, and a renewed commitment to renewable energy and electrified transportation. We need grid energy storage so we can store the power from solar panels and wind turbines for use when the wind is not there and the sun is not shining. And the batteries for those applications need to last as long as possible, be as cheap as possible, and be as sustainable as possible. And that's what we work on here.
I get my PhD degree back in China, studying on material science and electrochemistry. So 5 years ago, I took a job as a postdoc working in University of Maryland, working mainly on aqueous lithium batteries. My own group will continue the partnership with Tesla and trying to find an advanced material for the high-performance lithium battery, working with Tesla's agenda. And another focus will be the sustainable electrode materials, like trying to use for the low-cost, high-performance, and especially no transition metal materials, which will certainly give us a low-cost choice.
I graduated from the Technical University of Munich in Germany. That's where I did my PhD. And for the past 3 years, I worked in the Silicon Valley tech industry. You know, it's, I think, a really unique opportunity for me. I'm very excited to join the partnership with Tesla and work with you know, Jeff and Chongying, who are really incredible personalities. All in all, the goal for me is to you know, enable sustainable energy, mobility, and water, which I think you know, is well aligned with Tesla's mission. And
moving outside of the realm of cars and so forth, here's an interesting case study from Energy Vault. They have a really intriguing idea for energy storage that doesn't have to do with batteries at all, technically speaking. It has a different approach to how they're looking at energy and how they think about it.
Energy Vault, a low-cost electricity system based on gravity and kinetic energy, creates energy storage that finally allows renewables to deliver dispatchable and baseload power at the price that is competitive with carbon-based sources. Our product consists of a collection of custom, inexpensive bricks, a unique 6-arm support crane, electric motors, generators, sensors, and control software, which combine to deliver a 30-plus year life and round-trip efficiency of around 90%. As the crane lifts the bricks, the energy is stored in the elevation gain. Electricity powers the electric motors to raise the weights from the base state, building a self-supporting tower, which is the charge state. Each stacked tower of bricks will have a capacity of between 10 and 35 megawatt hours and a power output of up to 5 megawatts. When the time comes to discharge, the crane simply returns the bricks to their base state. The kinetic energy from the falling brick turns the motor, previously used to lift a brick, into a generator. This then passes the electricity through an inverter and out to the grid. Our specially engineered control software ensures that each brick is placed in the exact position each time, and even takes into account the effects of extreme weather conditions. The plant is unmanned, with many plants able to run from a single control center, allowing a quick response to market signals in real time, day and night. Our custom bricks are the perfect combination of a steel base plate, a high-strength concrete bottom, plus recycled rock and concrete mixture, allowing gravity storage to achieve a radical price-performance breakthrough. Bricks can be personalized, either to blend into the environment with a single color, or each brick can be considered an individual pixel and used to create a picture or company logo. We have come a long way in replacing dirty, carbon-based fossil fuels with clean and renewable resources. And now, with Energy Vault systems delivering long-duration energy storage at low levelized cost, we can start to believe in a fully renewable world for the next generation and beyond. Energy Vault, enabling a renewable world.
And now let's spend a minute and just talk about hydrogen and hydrogen fuels. So an interesting thing happened. In the early 1990s, there was this big bet on hydrogen, and Toyota was all in. They were very interested in creating something that was hydrogen fuels. And they never got away from that, and that's part of the problem here. It became clear that hydrogen fuel is not the answer for cars, but it was interesting that Toyota stayed on that track. And I think the inherent problems with it can be summed up through this video that I found that I thought was really pretty interesting. They do a nice job of kind of highlighting the issues.
So we're at a motorway service station just off the M25, and there is a hydrogen pump just here. Now I'm going to show you that actually putting hydrogen gas into the Mirai isn't a world away from putting petrol or diesel into your fuel-powered car. So the first thing you have to do is there is a payment card setup thing that you have to do. So we've done that, Toyota's provided that for us. And then once you set all that up, all you've got to do, press a few buttons on that screen, grab this pump here. You've got to then attach this nozzle to the car, and it's very important that you lock it into place. Then you go and press the start button. That was definitely
5 minutes later.
So dramatic pause, but it started putting hydrogen gas in, and it's doing so at 10,000 psi or 700 bar, which is pretty intense if you consider that the tyre pressure on the Mirai is 33 psi or 2.3 bar. So definitely not something that you want to be messing with. And it really just takes as long as it takes to put fuel into your fuel tank, and certainly doesn't take anywhere near as long as it does charging up your electric car. Okay, so the numbers have stopped going up. The green light on the start button has stopped flashing, so that means that it's finished, and it does that automatically. So now what I've got to do is unlock here. Whoa, and it feels really cold. That's cool. And you can see it's actually frosting a little bit around the tip of it. So then you just take that off, put it back, and then all you've got to do is put the payment card back in, and away you go. So you get a big range. It's really easy and simple to fill it up. Why doesn't everyone just buy a hydrogen car? Well, there's a few reasons. The fueling process may be easy and quick, but there aren't many places to do it. And when I say there aren't many places to do it, I mean there are 11 places in the UK to do it. 11. It also isn't exactly cheap to fill up. So the Mirai can hold 5.6 kilograms of hydrogen gas. So at the minute, it costs £12 per kilogram for hydrogen gas. So to fill up the Mirai costs just under £70, which gets you 400 miles, which doesn't sound very cheap. And it's not just the inconvenience or the cost of filling up that might put you off, but it's the cost of the car itself that could do that as well. The Toyota Mirai starts at a whisker under 50,000.
And as a point of reference, from the European Union, they discovered that hydrogen fueling cars is probably the lowest priority among all the priorities you could put hydrogen fuel into. So consider that when you think about hydrogen in the future.
And that's my story about storing energy. And that's why cars and electric cars to this point really only use batteries. But you can see the technology is really changing. So hopefully in the near future, really seriously, the near future, we'll actually get to see something different, and the energy storage will become more efficient and better.